TGO, Tom Gruenwald Outdoors, is brought to you by HT, premium ice tackle since 1974. Polar Fire Gear, this is how it's done. Tourism Saskatchewan, Canada's best freshwater fishing. Vexilar, ice fishing begins when you turn your Vexilar on. Kalispell, Montana, discovery in every direction. And these other fine sponsors.
Hello everyone and welcome to Tom Gruenwald Outdoors. I'm Tom Gruenwald. Today we're at the Vexilar corporate headquarters. We're going to be learning about the history of sonar as it relates to using sonar on the ice. We're actually going to get a chance to meet with Steve Bauman. Steve is the president of Vexilar and the man who came up with the concept of bringing sonar to ice fishing. He's going to go through all the different features and developments and advancements of the Vexilar line through the years, starting with the 3-color system that they have so we can actually monitor fish activity and see how they're moving, learn how to better adapt our baits and presentations to be effective. He's going to show us the self-leveling transducers, some of the older units right up to the brand new ones that we have. After we get done meeting with Steve, we're going to actually take some of the Vexilar experts, head out on the ice, and show the practical applications and how to use these features to catch more fish through the ice. Hey, come along with us today here on TGO as we learn more about sonar on ice. Steve, it is an honor and a pleasure to have you here on TGO.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for coming over out of the cold and visiting us for a while.
I'm wondering, Steve, if you could just take us on a little journey and show us the history of sonar on the ice, especially with all of the different features and designs and advancements that Vexilar has brought to sonar for applications for winter use.
Be happy to. I've got some of the progression. Every product evolves from a concept, an idea, and moves sometimes in directions you don't even anticipate. But it all evolves into what we see today. For the ice fishing flasher, I would say the start of it was a model called the DE12. This goes back to about 73, 74, that's 40 years ago now. And it introduced the concept of a 3-color LED to the fishermen. This was a vertical graph, not a big seller, not really accepted by the fishermen, but it brought the concept of 3-color LEDs to the marketplace.
And the concept behind the 3 colors, Steve, can you kind of just explain how you came out of that, the signal strength, and what information that provides the angler and the advantage of using that on the ice?
Sure, that's kind of the key to what this ice fishing revolution in electronics was about. 3 colors gave you 3 different signal strength levels. In our case, we use green primarily as a weak signal, orange is a little bit stronger, and red is stronger still. So it gives you three bits of information you never had before. At this point, all flashers were all orange or all red. I'm going to show you one of the original 3-color flashers, the predecessor to the industry standard now, which is the FL8. It was a rotating wheel 3-color flasher. This happens to be a Cytex, who was part of this ice fishing without knowing it. This was developed for boats, for navigation, wasn't designed for ice fishing, wasn't even considered in the development.
And it's interesting, Steve, you know, when you and I first talked, and that was probably in the early, I know for sure by the mid-1990s, when I wrote one of my first ice fishing books, I remember talking to people about using sonar on the ice, and I was actually scoffed at a little bit. Why would you need to use sonar on the ice? Now, did you encounter any of that when you first started trying to market sonar to ice fishing or ice fishermen?
We picked it up when there already was a groundswell a little bit. So there was, we call them fish heads.
Yeah.
The real serious ice fishermen who there was no resistance anymore. They were the vanguards. They accepted it. They were ready to go with it. That started, I'd say, in the mid-'80s and late '90s, where these hardcore ice fishermen already accepted it. And that's when the product was actually failing at that point. There was no defined market for the three-color flasher. The FL8 was in danger of going out of production.
Really?
That's the time when Vexilar stepped in and said, we're interested in the FL8 and we're going to target the ice fishing market.
You're watching TGO, Tom Gruenwald Outdoors.
So we've got this unit, now we're going to progress, and this unit's going to start to look a little more familiar, I think, to our viewers.
As we went along, now we've got something that's going to look pretty familiar to a lot of fishermen. This particular model was probably originated in the mid to early '80s. It's still in our line today, 30 years later.
And a lot of those are still in use today, amazingly enough, right?
We service virtually hundreds of them a year from the '80s, from the early '90s that we put back in the hands of the fishermen. And they're so happy to get it back. Their original unit, they know there's new stuff, but they still want their old companion with them.
They're familiar with it, and it's telling them what they need. Now this actually, there was a little bit of a progression then from this FL8 into some more of the modern looks, so to speak. We went from the FL8, and now your next unit was called the...
The next one was the FL18. And we listen to the consumer for what is the problems. We have to listen, everybody
Yes.
does. We listen and try to learn what the problems were. The first problem, I'll backtrack a little bit, was as we sell more and more units into the field, a problem come up of interference where multiple units were being used close to each other. That was a problem that needed to be solved.
Okay.
So we came up with an interference rejection system for the FL8, which helped these fishermen so that you could be close together. It's a real social. Ice fishing can be very social if you want it to be.
That's right.
You can fish close, right beside each other, so we wanted the equipment to work. After the interference, we addressed that. Then a lot of walleyes and perch are real popular fish, which tend to hug close to the bottom.
Correct.
So the FL18 was our answer, which was a zoom zone, which allowed them to zoom in on the bottom 6 foot. Similar shape, similar design, brighter lights, but that 6 foot zoom was a big, important step for us. I have to look back here and see what date it was. That was about 2002, the way it looks from our chart, that came out. So that was another progression, and one that's kind of fun to talk about. About the same time as the interference reject, we listened to our customers again. And at that time, they were using a transducer which needed to be held mechanically and adjusted for each time they set up their depth sounder, each time they caught a fish. They had to make adjustments. And there was a bubble level, which, this one it happens to be dry. But I'm sure you've probably done this in the past.
I remember it well, and I know trying to get that transducer at the right angle when I was on an uneven surface with snow and ice was always a problem. You'd drop down and, where is my lure? I can't see my lure. And of course, eventually, if you smooth the ice out enough, you could correct that problem. But Vexilar solved this for us once and for all.
And we say, well, that isn't friendly. That's not easy. And as ice fishermen, we want to make this as easy as possible so that you can be mobile and more effective. If you have to spend time doing this, or even if you get a little frustrated doing this, we tried to remove that. What we designed was a weighted leveling, self-centering transducer that you just drop in the water and you're ready to fish immediately.
Go fishing. TGOfishing.com.
Hey, we're back out here on the ice. We're with Tom Zanenko, the marketing manager from Vexilar Sonar. Tom, I really thank you for coming out here and joining us.
That's a great chance to be on the ice for the first time. This is great to have you out here. Welcome to Minnesota.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. Okay, Tom, there are a lot of people out there that have an awareness of sonar but really aren't sure how to set one up and how to use it. Can you go through just some of the basic features that a person needs to use or should be knowledgeable about so they can effectively use a Vexilar on ice?
A lot of people don't understand, Tom, when we talk about Vexilars, is that there's two important ingredients to a Vexilar. One is the transducer. And this is the ice deucer that Steve Bauman invented. This is a self-leveling transducer. And what it basically means is when you put it down the hole, it's always pointed straight down the hole. If it's even tipped off a little bit, you can't see your lure, you can't see the fish that are directly below you. So when Steve invented the self-leveling transducer, it was like, why didn't I think of that? It was the ultimate mousetrap. So needless to say, I'm lucky to work for a genius, but at the same time, the self-leveling transducer is critical. It's half of the equation. This transducer, while it doesn't seem to do anything, it just kind of sits there, is very important because, believe it or not, there is an electronic signal that comes from the head of the unit. It turns it into sound. Sound bounces back, and it turns it back into electricity again. It's an amazing technology that this transducer uses, and we're the only ones in the industry that uses barium titanate for their transducer crystals, which is important because barium titanate isn't affected by cold weather. So you need to use a crystal designed for this performance, and it really works quite well.
All right, Tom, let's drop that marmuska down there and see if we can generate some interest.
And that's my jig going down there. And what I'm looking for is any targets that might be down here. Oh, there's a bunch of targets coming in.
Oh, look at that.
Look, there's a whole school of little fish. But see, my jig is red, but these things are green. So my guess is they're small targets. I want to target these bigger red signals, which are probably crappies or sunfish. And then I'm jiggling my bait just above them. I'm going to see if I can entice one to come up. See, he's following. Come on, come here, fishy. I'm actually getting the fish to follow my bait.
When you get a couple fish on there, get them competing a little bit, isn't that the trick?
Oh, I love that. You're right. If you can get them fighting for it, then they really get all excited. And really, if you catch one or two of them, you can get the whole bunch of them going. Now, let me show you something here too, Tom. If I turn up the gain, see, the whole screen goes blah, blah, and you can't really see nothing on it. You have to keep that gain super low so you can see the individual targets that are down here. And if you do so, those fish will react, and we hopefully will get them to bite. Look at that. There's 2 or 3 of them chasing it. But who's going to get it? Who's going to get it? See, we've got one fish chasing it. It's a little cat and mouse game that we play here. Nope, he didn't want it. And here's another fish even higher. So I'm going to continue to work these fish up to see if I can find a fish that wants to bite. See, that fish is coming up. He's come up quite a ways now. Yep. And the more they come up, the more there's a chance that they're going to commit. Here comes one charging up. There he is. Oh, man. It is a lot of fun using this Vexilar. There's no doubt about it. Oh, he's just a nice one. That's what it's all about, folks. We played this cat and mouse game. We saw the fish on the screen. We tried different scenarios, high, low, somewhere in between. And then we catch this beautiful little bluegill. And Tom, I guarantee you there's guys out here today that haven't caught a fish. Why? Because they're fishing a foot off the bottom. And these fish are not a foot off the bottom. In fact, even the fish that are way off the bottom don't want to bite unless you can sort through which ones want to bite. And with a Vexilar, you can find them and you can catch them.
Let's learn something. Time for a TGO tackle tip.
I'm all set up, Tom. Let me show you what I got here.
Excellent. You know, one of the #1 things that I get asked by viewers, Tom, is when I get out in a big group, and it happens to me too. We're fishing together in a shack or on a school of fish, and we have problems with interference. Do you have any hints for us that will help us, or some tips that will help us to reduce interference?
Well, Tom, that's a really good question. Interference is caused by other sonar sounds being transmitted and received at the same time. You know, I've talked about transducers at length, but each transducer transmits a sound and then receives it back in. Well, the problem is if you have multiple transducers all in the same area transmitting at the same time, they're all listening at the same time, which causes the interference. In this context, I have 3 systems, all functioning within 3 feet of each other. So this would simulate what you'd have in a fish house scenario. What I first do is I turn down the gain to minimum. And this eliminates a lot of the random flashes around the screen. And as you press the knob, you have 20 different settings here with the IR controls. And what I want to be able to do is to find a setting where you eliminate as much of the interference as possible. Now, will you be able to eliminate all of it? Well, that's technically impossible, but you definitely can remove enough of it so you'll be able to fish effectively all day long. But again, in summary, if you want to eliminate gain, use a narrower beam transducer, keep your gain set as low as possible, and only one person adjusts the IR, and you'll find a setting that I'm sure that you can fish with.
More fishing action online at tgofishing.com.
Hey, we're with Corey Studer from Vexilar, and Corey is using a bait. It's called a Selmo Chubby Darter, and in some of the bigger sizes, people have been using this really effectively for pike, walleye, lake trout, and other game fish. But you've got a smaller size one here, and you're using it for panfish.
Yes, for crappies, bluegills, perch. It's a phenomenal bait to get these fish turned on for one. But the problem that people have is they're not fishing them aggressively enough. I mean, I really jigged the heck out of it.
Yeah. Working it up, pulling it away from them.
You gotta tease them, but it's the profile, but it's also the shimmy as it goes down. It's a nice. There you go. That's right. Yeah, got him. I can show you here what we're using. Number 4. Selmo Chubby Darter.
Nice.
And it catches big fish and panfish as well.
And this one right here, now I know there's a different bait. It's called the zipper. That's a rattle bait, and this one's different. This isn't a rattle.
This is not a rattle bait. The zipper bait was designed more for, the bigger fish, the predator fish,
Sure.
but also giant eyes. The guys up on Lake Winnipeg, Lake of the Woods, probably in your area would be great bait too.
Oh, for sure.
In fact, I'll show it to you if you want to take a look at it.
Sure.
And here's the zipper right here.
That's got the chamber.
It's got the rattles in it, yep. And look at that realistic image too, the perch, hot perch. Another thing we stress is using a softer tip like this right here, or really almost like a dead stick rod, if you will.
Exactly.
And the other thing, if you notice, I didn't use any bait.
Yeah.
I don't need any bait.
Yeah. Let the action of the lure attract them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look at that, right below the ice. You go back down.
There he is. Come on, fish. They should see this screen right now. It's there. There's 4 or 5 fish on there, and they're coming right
There
off
goes,
the bottom.
there
There
is.
you go.
There it is.
Bingo. It works.
Well, of course it works. It's Chubby Darter. Look at that.
That's fun.
Now, again, a lot of people think that big baits, they'll catch these nice panfish too. I mean, if you want something for the frying table, I mean, that's a perfect size eating right there.
You want this one for you?
No, you let him go. Let him go.
So there you go. Nice crappie. Go down there, get another one. They're still down there.
Look at that. Oh, he's got one.
There he was.
Nice. You got it.
There, my first Selmo Chubby Darter fish right there. That's fun. That's fun. I like working these. Well, that was fun. Get back down and do that again. There we go.
There it is.
I felt a tug on the line, I pulled it, and it went click.
Downsize. Oh, there you go. Another.
Thanks for showing me how to do it.
The bluegill.
Hey, this has been a fantastic day. I want to thank Steve Bauman from Vexilar for taking us through and showing us the history and the development of sonar, particularly as it relates to using it on the ice. Also want to thank Tom Zanenko for coming out here. We're on the ice actually using the units, showing the practical application. Tom, this has just been fantastic. And boy, sonar really does add a whole new dimension to the sport, doesn't it?
When people talk about the modern ice fishing revolution, it wouldn't have been possible without Steve Bauman's developing of the Vexilar flasher sonar technology. Without flashers,
why would you drill so many holes? Why would you start being mobile and move from spot to spot? The Vexilar flasher has truly transformed the sport of grumpy old men staring at a hole in the ice to a modern way of understanding that there's fish, and you can figure out a way to catch those fish.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just a fish finder, it's a way to monitor fish activity and learn and better apply what you're doing in your presentation to be more effective. And we're always going to be effective here on TGO. I want to thank Steve Bauman for joining us. I want to thank Tom Zanenko from Vexilar for coming out onto the ice, and you for coming in and joining us. And remember, no matter where we go or where we are, here on TGO, it's all ice fishing all the time.
TGO has been brought to you by HT, premium ice tackle since 1974. Polar Fire Gear, this is how it's done. Tourism Saskatchewan, Canada's best freshwater fishing. Vexilar, ice fishing begins when you turn your Vexilar on. Kalispell, Montana, discovery in every direction. And these other fine sponsors. TGO, where it's all ice fishing all the time.